I mean, I always want to know when people are going to DNF, because I, probably should have DNF'd the book that I had for the last episode, but I'm wondering, at what point any of us DNF a book.
Never.
I don't think I have limits anymore.
I'll say, Caitlin can't, say that she does because, she'll read anything at this point. She is just, I don't know, you need help.
Yeah, apparently I will read anything and I won't stop.
If at any point, I am considering putting down my book to look at TikTok, it's time to DNF.
Damn.
Oh, that's an interesting way to think about it.
I'm too stubborn.
Because that just proves how bored I am. If I'm like, I wonder what TikTok's got going on. That's when it's like, okay, this book's boring and I need to put it down.
I'm not an astrology girly, but I'm a Taurus, so I am way too stubborn to DNF anything.
Yeah.
It's gonna be my excuse. Too stubborn.
I was reading, there's an audiobook I'm listening to, nonfiction book, by Anne Applebaum, and she was quoting Voltaire, and it made me think of you, lady, how you, regularly read Voltaire.
Regularly?
Yeah. Once a year or whatever, you said you read Voltaire.
No, I read it once. Well, twice.
But so there was a really good quote that she brought up, and she's talking about, it's called The Twilight of Democracy, and she's talking about the descent into authoritarianism from democracies. But so this quote from Voltaire is, "Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities." And granted, this is in a nonfiction sense, but I also think about it and I'm like, all the fiction I read and villains.
I'm still just stuck on how hard you French stereotyped the lady.
I think I shocked her by reading Candide last year.
Oh.
She's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna read Candide on my own. I was like, huh? I was like, I needed several footnotes and just give me the highlight excerpts. I can't just sit there and read it.
I mean, I'm just gonna say, so far, this is our most intellectual intro to a podcast. So now let's go back to talking about dicks and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically,
yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
We got places to be.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, and welcome to my podcast, Knows What You Read in the Dark, a book club podcast made by chaotic people for chaotic people. I'm B.
I'm Kristen.
I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Lady.
And we are four friends here to tell you what's what about the books we read and loved this month, or the books we hated this month.
Kristen, did you love yours or hate yours?
I fucking hated it.
Yes!
That's always a good start.
Yeah.
This is how we like to start a podcast.
Yeah. I love starting with this energy.
Yeah, I was telling everybody off mic, but when I first finished this book, I knew I didn't like it, but the more that I sit on it, the more I can't stand it. And so the more that we were actually supposed to record this episode last week, and then a bunch of stuff came up and we never did. And so I've been stewing about this since then. And it's just now that we're finally able to talk about it, I have so much.
You're just going to unload on us. All right.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I've finished my glass of wine. We're one episode down. Let's fucking go.
Well, and I now
Strap
remember
in.
we were debating how to split our books and such. And I remember Kristen and I both were negative about our books, and so at first we were going to be together, and then I was just like, "Ooh, that's gonna be a lot of negativity."
Especially because it's not good negativity, in
it's not funny.
Right. It's not like Siggy Shade and that other Buck Wild fucking book. But anyways,
our cursed episode.
Yeah. I've been in a reading slump for the entire month of May, and so far in June too. I'm fully blaming it on the fact that for Warm Page Library, we read Twilight.
It's your fault.
Yeah, I know it's not my fault. Y'all voted on it, but whatever.
I did not vote for it.
Do not put this
I
responsibility
feel like y'all
on
voted
us.
specifically to make me read it. Speaking of me not DNFing books, I felt like that vote was rigged to make me read that book.
It wasn't rigged, I swear. Caitlin can vouch for me. I sent her the results.
I voted for it.
I did too, because I know it's going to be hilarious.
To my mistakes.
I wanted The Hunger Games or something I hadn't read, but not Twilight.
Well, we did read it, and it
Here
fucked up
we are.
Yeah, and here I am in a reading slump I can't get out of. So, I would kind of just stare at my bookshelf trying to find something to read. Nothing sounded good. I knew I was coming up on a deadline to read a book for the podcast. And so I ended up picking a book that I was actually really looking forward to when I picked it up at the store. The reason that I was so excited is because in the description, it says, perfect for fans of stories like The Secret History and If We Were Villains, which, okay, say less, you've grabbed me. The problem is this book could not be any less like either of these books if it tried to be.
These things are always a lie, these kinds of blurbs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've started to not trust them. Like, when they're like, if you liked The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, you'll love this. And I'm like, no, I won't.
It fucking says that on Wintersong.
Yeah, that's right.
Ew.
And I'm the only one who finished it, aren't I?
No, I finished it. It was bad.
You and me.
Yeah. Yeah. Lady, didn't you read the sequel?
No, I did not.
She doesn't hate herself that much.
I considered it, but no.
I'd say somebody did. It might have been Emily. I can't really remember, but
I don't think anyone did.
Or maybe somebody just read the synopsis. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think that's it, yeah.
Okay, but anyway, yeah, I'm getting to the point where I don't trust these little blurbs either because they are never accurate. But either way, today I'm going to be talking about The Things We Do to Our Friends by Heather Darwin. This novel is described as being a suspenseful thriller, but do not believe these claims. This book is neither of them. If anything, it reads more of like a drama. When I first picked it up and started reading it, I thought it was going to be a lot like Bunny, which you probably remember me talking about from our very first episode. The book starts out really bizarre with a man narrating the story, and he's talking about how he's watching three young girls dancing and smiling at him. And then...
Ew.
But then you realize that he's tied up and he's been drugged. This entire scene was actually written really, really well. I liked how the author laid it out and made it a surprise when you realize that he's been, essentially kidnapped. Because when you first start it kind of has like a predatory vibe on his side, and then she twists it and makes it predatory on these young girls.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm with you.
But then, in the most random twist of all time, these girls start... I can't even say with a straight face. They start feeding him, like force feeding him risotto.
Why risotto?
Yeah, I don't... It's so weird. It was like the biggest whiplash I've ever gotten from a book because I had just thought in my head, I'm like, wow, this scene's written so well. And then this happens and I'm like, okay, whatever. At least in Bunny, when everything got really weird, it made sense because the entire book had been really weird from the beginning. But with this book, it just never felt right. It never clicked. It just, whenever weird things would happen, it was just like the writer didn't understand the assignment. Like, it was really strange. Anyway, we get past the first chapter and we get to the actual story, which is being told like a memoir through the narrator, whose name is Claire. At the time the story takes place, she was an art history student at a university in Edinburgh, Scotland. She ends up meeting a group which she calls the Shiver, which, if you don't know, is the name of a group of sharks. She coins this name because, like a group of sharks is known as a Shiver.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Don't know why, but
right.
Yeah, but it's because they give off the vibe of sharks, like in general demeanor, or what people think of as sharks, like being, like aggressive and shady. And
I have a feeling that's not true.
It's probably not true, but that's just whatever. But anyway, despite this and her thinking this negative thought about them, like she wants to be in their friend group very badly. She describes herself being drawn to them. They live very lavish lifestyles. They have summer homes in France and they drive pretty cars and basically all these things that Claire does not have. When the book opens, she describes, she's living, she has pennies to her name. She's trying to get a job. She just moved across the country. So, she's barely scraping by. And then she sees this group of people that are living a life that she wants to, and she's very drawn to that. If I could describe this dynamic in any other way, my millennial's going to come out. It feels like when Katie meets the Plastics in Mean Girls. The group who are known as the Shiver are called, their names are Tabitha, Imogen, Samuel, and Ava. And they fit into the roles like you'd see in the movie, where Tabitha is fulfilling the role of Regina, but the others kind of fit into the other roles in a variety of ways. They're close, but they don't ever act like they like each other. There's animosity that lingers under the surface, and you pick up as they talk to each other, interact with other girls in the group, etc. When Claire joins the group, it gets even worse. But they're so codependent on each other that it ends up being the downfall of the entire group, and we'll go into that a little bit later. But it's a lot like, again, Regina, Gretchen, Karen, and Katie in Mean Girls. You know, they're all codependent on each other, but it's what ends up breaking them apart at the end of the movie. Anyway, the main plot of this book is that Tabitha has this idea to start a business where they help women get revenge on their husbands who may or may not be cheating on them. The wives just kind of come to them and explain that they think it's possible and that they want proof to, you know, confirm it. And then the girls, so Tabitha, Imogen, Ava, and Claire, lure the husband somewhere, seduce them, they take pictures or videos, and then send them to the wives as proof. This goes about as well as you'd expect it to. So, in other words, it's a total fucking disaster. Especially later on in the novel, because Tabitha goes fucking apeshit and starts getting really violent with the men instead of just, like, setting them up and taking videos of them. My problem with this book isn't really the plot or even the characters. As I said before, this book feels like Bunny and Mean Girls, both of which I'm a big fan of. I mean, Bunny was weird, but it was really interesting. Like, it grabbed me and I didn't put it down. The problem is that the pacing of this book and how absolutely fucking boring this book is. It has the potential to be a fantastic thriller. It could grip you immediately, keep you hanging on. It could be a really weird horror, kind of like Bunny. It could be an actual suspenseful thriller, but it falls flat every single time. The best example that I can think of is around about 30% in. Claire is looking through Tabitha's room, just kind of be generally nosy, when she comes across photos of herself that someone else has taken of her. Like, they're really weird, super candid shots of her walking to class, her apartment, work, etc.
Which is creepy.
Right. There's 1,000 ways that this whole plot line could have went. Claire could have been totally freaked out and paranoid about someone following her. Claire could confront Tabitha and it get violent. Claire could take the pictures and then Tabitha could find out and confront her. Claire could leave the pictures, but then more start showing up at her apartment. Literally anything like this could have happened. But
she does none of these.
This plot point goes nowhere. It's mentioned.
What?
It's mentioned one more time near the end of the book, and absolutely nothing happens. And every single moment like this is the same way. When you get to the end of the novel and the big twist happens, it is so boring and non-confrontational that I had to close the book and stop.
Ugh.
Like, just, I mean, we talk about it here all the time, but if you are going to bring up a plot point, you better follow through with it. Or I'm, like, don't bring it up if you're not going to follow through with it. It drives me insane, but whatever. Nothing about this book is suspenseful for it to be labeled a suspense. I never felt like I needed to turn the page and find out what was going to happen. I never felt uneasy at the plot, at least not in a way that makes it feel like a thriller. There were definitely, like, weird shit going on and a lot of what the fuck moments, but not in a way that made any sense. Again, to reiterate, it's like the author didn't understand the assignment. And even their codependency on the other characters isn't that bad. If you've read These Violet Delights of the Raven Cycle, this codependency in this book is like a walk in the park. I mean, I'm just going to say it. Another thing that really pissed me off about this book was in an article that I read about the book when I was angry Googling about it.
Oh, please. That's what I like. That's my tea.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going to look up shit about this and make myself angrier. But it said that the novel was an intoxicating, upmarket psychological thriller with shades of the secret history for the Me Too era. Which, if you don't know what the Me Too era is, it was basically like women coming out and exposing men for sexual abuse.
The only response I have to that, like, article title is, okay, boomer.
Exactly. What pissed me off so much about this is that comparing it to the Me Too era is fucking ridiculous. Women leading men into dark corners, potentially framing them, because again, we don't know for sure if these men are cheating. And then breaking up a marriage is not the same as women coming forward about their sexual abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are the men in this book like only cheaters, or are there like other worst crimes, if you know what I mean?
There's one man in this book that is, he is like a sexual abuser, but he is the only one out of a lot.
But vengeance
of
is
men.
not
Okay.
accountability. Like,
Correct.
yeah, like Me Too is more about being able to come forward and there being a process of accountability,
Exactly.
not
Right.
vengeance and retribution. Like,
Yeah.
Right. And so when I saw this, it just like really irked me, because the article and like them using like Me Too in the title of the article, like it takes away from how important that movement was, and to compare it to this novel, which is like, again, like a vengeance fantasy, which is not the same thing. And
It just shows a fundamental misunderstanding or like a skewed perspective on what Me Too was about and what the purpose of it was. Because in this, they're just like, this is completely unrelated to women standing up for themselves and outing their sexual assaults and the sexual predators. This is like completely in a totally different universe.
Like here at my podcast Knows What You Read in the Dark, we stand like a vengeance, like plot of a girl who wants vengeance. Comparing it to Me Too is not the same thing.
Right.
No.
It's not a good look. Though to be fair, is it the author who compared it to Me Too, or like a random?
Well, like the person who wrote the article did the comparison, but in the article where the author is being interviewed, she does agree with this statement.
Well, yeah.
So, fucked up regardless. In this same article, it says that the book explores the dark side of friendship and privilege, which I won't completely argue with. It definitely explores privilege and how it can warp the mind, especially like monetary privilege. But these people in this book are never fucking friends. None of their interactions are ever genuine. I know Lady is the only person here who's read If We Were Villains, but that book shows the dark side of friendship. You know that all of the people in the group are tight and they would do anything for each other, and the lengths that they would go to protect each other. That's dark friendship. The people in this book, nothing. There is no evidence that they are friends. The lengths they go to for each other feel like insanity rather than love or codependency. My final point is that this book just made me like so fucking sad. I hate when books have potential and then they fall really flat. I remember seeing this book at Barnes & Noble and being so pumped about it because the cover is absolutely gorgeous. The blurb sounds amazing. Like it's got like a woman's like front, I don't want to say silhouette, but her entire face just covered with like bright colored flowers. And
my favorite kind of covers is like face with something fucked up happening to it.
Yeah, like a body horror type cover. Like, I loved it. And the blurb was really good. But man, I got gaslit from here to the moon. And if I hadn't been needing a book for the show, I would have put this down. We talked about it, about books we would DNF. I would have DNF'd this. If I wasn't so desperate to have a book to talk about, I would have put it down. It took me over a week to finish this, and it's less than 350 pages.
You should have just talked about Twilight.
I should have, because at least Twilight would have been fun to talk about, but yeah, anyway, all in all, like, super disappointed. 2 out of 5 stars. The only reason I didn't give it 1 star was because I only usually 1-star books that I don't finish, and somehow I finished it, but man, it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah, I haven't read The Secret History, but like, them comparing it to If We Were Villains, like you said, like they're not, like from what you described, they're not even friends. Like what makes If We Were Villains so poignant is the fact that they are friends and they would, like they all have this like weird relationship with each other where it's like super tangled and like everyone's like sleeping and has feelings with everyone and stuff like that. This reminds me, like you said, it reminds me more of Mean Girls or like Heathers, where they're friends for convenience and not because they're friends. Like, they're quote-unquote friends.
Right, and again, like, Bunny has this dynamic, too, where, like, you can tell that they're not really friends, they just, like, don't have anybody else, and so they always kind of hang out together.
But was Bunny being compared to other books like this? Probably not.
No, I doubt it. I mean, in fact, I know for a fact it wasn't. Like, I've seen it on Dark Academia lists, but that's about as close as it got to being compared to. And The Secret History is a lot like If We Were Villains in the aspect of, like, everyone in there are closely knit, but their relationships are strange and they can be tense at times because everyone's, again, like, interwoven with the other person. They're all kind of sleeping with each other, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Love that for them.
Yeah, I don't like The Secret History as much as If We Were Villains. It's not bad, I just don't like it as much, but the fact that, again, we talked about this earlier, but, like, people have got to stop with these blurbs because
I hate it. Yeah,
they
it's the
never
worst.
hit the mark ever, and it's just like it's very frustrating because, like, I mean, I'm a victim of, you know, been like, if I see my favorite book listed as like if you like, then I want to read it and see if something's gonna capture me as well as the book that's being mentioned, and it just never freaking does.
No,
and then it's like more disappointing when that happens.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, when I saw this book at Barnes & Noble, I was so excited because it was compared to two really books I really liked. Again, the cover was beautiful, and, like, I read the back, and I'm like, this sounds really, really good. And even when I started it, that first kind of prologue chapter, I was like, this isn't going to be exactly like those two books, but it's gonna be like Bunny, and Bunny captured my attention, like, really, really well. And then I got about 20% in, and I was like, man, this book fucking sucks. Like, it's just so boring. Like, I just felt it was like I would put the book down to, like, scroll on my phone.
Oh yeah,
and it was just like, this is, I mean, I had to force feed myself this book because it was just so boring. Like, I would not recommend this to literally anyone. And, like, I hate to say it, but this book felt like a debut novel because of how bad the pacing was.
was it?
Yes.
No, okay.
Yeah. And, like, I mean, I'm not knocking on debut novels. I realize it takes it takes a whole fucking lot to write a book and publish it, especially in traditional publishing. Like, that's an amazing feat and, like, all that stuff. But this needed a couple of rounds more editing because the pacing is a fucking nightmare. If this book had been the length of Bunny, which is, I think around 200 pages, it probably wouldn't have been that bad. But it's so slow, and I don't know, I hated it so much. I'm so glad I'm finished with it, and I don't ever have to think about it again.
Good, you're done now.
Yeah, thank God.
and my book was the perfect, like, we matched this episode so perfectly because my book was thrilling and had me, like, stressed the whole time I was reading it, and I absolutely loved this book. So, I did not originally plan on talking about this book. Well, I've said book. It's not a book. It's a novella. It's 122 pages.
Ooh.
But anyways, I plan on bringing something different, which I won't mention because I'm going to bring it on another episode. Even after I finish this book, I still wasn't planning on talking about it. But the longer that I sat with it, the more I felt myself wanting to talk about it, and I just couldn't get it off my mind. So the novella I'm going to talk about today is Wild Spaces by S.L. Coney. I got an ARC of this book from NetGalley. It comes out on August 1st.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was one of those novellas that just kind of reached inside my brain and did something in there. And I had so much trouble writing my notes, I couldn't really properly articulate my thoughts, but we'll see if I did a good job. We'll see. Okay, so Wild Spaces is billed as a coming-of-age story meets eldritch horror, and boy howdy, does that description really sum up how, like, the points that this story hits. It does both of those things so well, and it blends them together in a way that really works.
So I have a question, and it's probably a stupid question. What do you mean by eldritch horror?
So Eldritch horror is horror in the style of like
Lovecraft.
Yeah, thank you. I got the first name right. I got HP and I was like, what the fuck is his last name? But it's in the style of Lovecraft where there is like some ancient monster or god or something that was like worshipped, and it's something primordial, whether it's like an ocean creature or whatever, that is being awoken to come and either awoken within a person or just awoken in general to basically come and wreak havoc on the world.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
This story is told through these vignettes that takes place as a young boy who is not named. None of the characters are named except for the dog. But as he reaches adolescence and things, capital T things, start happening with him and his family. I'm going to start off this little book report with a trigger warning for animal death. Do not worry, I will not be getting into it on this podcast episode at all. I will say the animal death isn't quite what it seems at first blush, but I just want to put it out there, and then you as a reader can make your own decisions on whether or not you want to read it. I will say though, if you're a horror fan like me, like a lot of the times you expect this kind of thing to happen, and if you're not prepared for it, you at least like maybe know you're aware of it, so it's not a blindside kind of thing, but whatever, grain of salt and all that. So let's get into it. The main character of Wild Spaces is a young boy. I'd say he's probably about 10 or 12 years old at the beginning of the book. It doesn't specify, but he's grown up living this idyllic life on the South Carolina coast. And he lives with his mom, his dad, and at the start of the novella, his dog, Teach. His father is some kind of biologist. Obviously, given that this book is from a child's point of view, it doesn't go into detail. But given my own scientific background, he sounds like he primarily focuses on mollusks or some kind of wetland biology. This is not important to the story, but I know you guys, mainly Lady and I, would want to know.
Yes.
Gotta know all the sciencey stuff.
No, I was gonna say, I appreciate it. Even if I don't get it, I'm like, yeah.
Right, like I don't get it, but I want to hear cool things.
Yeah, and they do have a cool scene where they go out and like look for these special kind of clams, and the father like says why they're special, and so like it's not very intensive, but it is cool. I'm like, yeah, thanks. I wanted to know this.
I was gonna say we are definitely a friend group that like appreciates and encourages info dumps. So
oh, absolutely.
Yes.
His mother is a historian or writer. Again, because it's a little boy telling a story, it's not clear. But her primary focus is on pirates, which obviously is very exciting and cool to a young boy and me.
And to Caitlin, yeah.
And that fascination is where the dog's name comes from. He's named Teach after Edward Teach, aka Blackbeard.
Ooh.
Teach, the dog, not the pirate, is astray, and the boy and his parents find him at the very beginning of the story. Teach immediately fits right into this family unit and kind of rounds out this peaceful coastal life that they've built together. But, of course, I said this was a horror novel. And shortly after Teach arrives, and seamlessly joins the family, the boy's grandfather shows up, and not so seamlessly joins the family. He's the mother's father, and it's instantly apparent that something is fucking off with this dude. Teach, the dog, does not like him. He growls at him.
Oh, yeah.
Hello?
Nope.
Red flag city. The grandfather and the boy's mother clearly have an estranged relationship. The grandfather's never met the boy or even the boy's father, but nonetheless, he starts staying with them. The boy describes it as pushing his way into their lives, which is a very simple way of describing it, but for me it spoke just volumes about the energy. Yeah, that the grandfather is giving off to this kid and how uncomfortable he makes everybody. Speaking of vibes, the grandfather's vibe, rancid. Completely terrible. Every time he was on page, I was uncomfortable or apprehensive because he just like didn't feel right. At one point, the boy comments that the grandfather only smiles when everyone else is unhappy.
Oh, I hate it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's ugh. The grandfather's oppressive presence starts to cause cracks in this really like postcard perfect life that the boy and his parents have built together. And they get pushed on this trajectory that they really just can't escape from. I won't really say anything else about the plot because, again, it's a really short book, and what I've covered already covers like the first maybe 10 pages of it, and I'm
already hooked. Like, I already want to read this book.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
When I saw your review, I knew I was going to read it.
Yeah.
But like now,
I think you'll really like it. You were the person I had in mind when I was reading this and when I picked it to talk about. Yeah. So I think part of the thing is like you really have to read this novella to understand what makes it spectacular. The author writes a level of gritted teeth tension that some full-length novels completely fail to do. And I know some people just won't get it, and maybe this is a little exposure on myself and a little indicative of my own life experiences and trauma, but you really just can't explain the apprehension created by a presence in your household, or like how your whole existence starts revolving around that anticipation that something bad is going to happen, even if nothing bad has happened recently, you have that anticipation all the time. Like, unless you've experienced it, I can't explain it to you.
I got you.
And
I agree.
Yeah. I felt that every time the grandfather showed up. Like, it was just in the way that he spoke to people. Like, he didn't do anything that was like, oh my god, until later on in the book. But even just his conversations when he, like, first meets the boy, I was like, oh, I don't like him. There's a scene where they're, like, sitting on the beach together, just, like, chit-chatting, and I was literally sitting there like, oh god, oh god, oh god, like waiting for something to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Recently I read Mexican Gothic. I don't know if anyone else here has read it.
It's on my list.
No. But there's like, it's the same where there's this patriarch in the house, and he's like super creepy, and every time he was on the page I was just like, ugh.
Oh yeah.
And it was mixed in with some eugenics as well, so like double grossed out every time he was on the page.
Ugh. In my review, I said that there were parts of this novella that I found myself literally like white knuckling my coffee mug because I was just waiting for a shoe to drop.
Those are the best kind of books.
Yes. And that shoe, it just kept hanging there and hanging there and hanging there. And I felt like I was being ratcheted up every time these interactions were happening. Now, I know what you're thinking. Caitlin, I thought you said this was also a coming-of-age story. This sounds like it's all horror. Do not worry. Wild Spaces also manages to hit that aspect out of the fucking park. So, it can be really hard, especially in a novella, to really get the pacing right as far as aging up a character at the right, time frame. Mm-hmm. Especially with a young kid like that. But as I said in the beginning, this book is told through these little vignettes. And showing this story through these little moments in time really helps set the pace, because the author uses these glimpses into the increasing family strain going on, and the boy, as he grows, like his disinterest in his parents' career, which he used to be really into and really interested in, as a way to mark this transition from a kid who has the entire world at his fingertips and parents who dote on him to an adolescent who self-isolates and feels like a stranger in his own skin and even in his own home. Mm. There's this scene when things are like really starting to get real, where the boy takes down his model pirate ship and he throws it in his closet, and the ship's hull breaks, and something about that moment was so finite that it honestly made me tear up and get really emotional, because it's just watching someone get to that age, and I know everyone can relate to this, where they start diminishing themselves or changing themselves because they don't know how to grow up, but they also don't know how to be a kid anymore.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to see someone go through that, especially when part of the reason they're going through it is beyond their control, which is what's going on in Wild Spaces. The ending of this book was not what I expected. It was kind of bittersweet, but it was also really hopeful. I hope you can see, like, why I had trouble kind of articulating my thoughts, and why the longer that I sat with it, I kept thinking about it, and it kept creeping in and making me consider more and more about the book. But
I love a bittersweet ending for horror novels.
Yes.
Often, especially when the characters are not named like this, like, bad shit's gonna happen, and you don't expect you don't expect the sweet aspect of the bittersweet.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just this whole time they're building this relationship because, like, reading it, he's an only child living with two kind of a little bit eccentric parents. He's doted on, he's loved, and his parents, like, foster this intellectual curiosity and creativity in him. And it's just immediately when there is this, basically, you know, a grain of sand in the machine, the grandfather coming to stay, it is instantly, like, that dynamic shifts so quickly that you are left trying to figure out where you as the reader fit into the dynamic as well of these people whose whole lives are changing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. Wild Spaces was really good. I hope you guys pick it up when it comes out. I was thinking about it, and part of me was like, wow, there's nobody I would recommend this to. And then the other part of me was like, I want to recommend this to everyone. I want everyone to read it.
I definitely know how that feels. It's like...
I will.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I will say this. When I first saw that you had reviewed it and everything, I was like, that's really not my cup of tea. But after hearing, like, this whole spiel, like, it completely changed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. The premise appealed to me, and I do like the cover as well. But when I started it, being a horror fan, and there's a very prominent character, there's a dog who's very prominent, I was like, oh no. No. I know what's gonna happen. I've watched too many horror movies.
Yeah, it's too obvious.
And you sit there, wait, and I was worried that I was not gonna like it because of that anticipation and worrying about that. And I was really, even when the thing I was concerned about did happen, I was still sitting there like, wow, this book is so good. Like, I couldn't get it out of my head.
Well, and like, you know, I really do like a thriller. If they're done well, which I will admit they are often not done well. But this one definitely sounds like, I feel like thrillers work better in a novella setting because you can have the tension there, but it's not as like, you don't have to take breaks in it. You know what I mean? So like you can keep the reader, as you said, like white knuckling, you know, always on the edge of their seat without it getting like overwhelming and also in making it almost boring. So yeah, I appreciate that this book is on the shorter side and more of a novella because it, like I said, it works.
Yeah. And like I said, I think one thing that really helps with the tension as well in this book's favor is the fact that it's told, like, it's not like, on day one we did blah, 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 and then it continues with day two. It's like, there are these small moments that happen. Like, I'm looking at one in front of me right now that is literally maybe 3 lines long. And it just says, his grandfather doesn't seem to notice that this family, once cohesive, has become jagged and raw. Yeah, it's really good.
Sometimes that's all you need. You know, like, you don't have to make everything super long and drawn out. You know, sometimes the less is more when it comes to thrillers.
Oftentimes, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about what you were saying, Caitlin, about like some books that you read that you were saying like you either want no one to read it and almost like cherish what that book did for you, but at the same time you want everyone to read it, so it's like, this should change you, you know?
Yeah.
I have that.
There's like a Tumblr post that goes around every so often that's like, I just need to read a short story that completely changes my life and maybe I'll calm down.
Yes.
There's always the darkest part of the forest for you, Caitlin.
This book gives me the same vibes as what This Is How You Lose the Time War did for me.
Yeah.
Because it's like a short little novella. And you don't really know who to recommend it to because it's so different from anything else that you'll read, but it like rots your brain in the way that it captures you so quickly. And if I feel the same way about this book that I feel about This Is How You Lose the Time War, it will be a good book. Indeed.
I had a similar book that I read recently by Neil Gaiman. So it's called The Ocean at the End of the Lane, and it's also similarly somewhat of a coming of age story, but it gets into like this interesting aspect of like sci-fi, like realism, and also might deal with some Cthulhu-esque like Lovecraftian. Anyway, but someone actually on the One Page Library wanted me to like talk about it, and at the same time I read it, and I'm still sitting with it, where it was like, I know I've missed some of the metaphor, or there's like something bigger, or like it definitely hit and resonated in significant ways, but I don't feel like I can unpack that.
Yeah.
But this sounds like that as well. Like you were talking about it, and it just kept reminding me of like that recent read. Definitely, I would not have expected to, like at first glance, I would not have picked this book up, but like having heard you talk about it, I'm definitely adding it to my TBR.
Yeah, so this is literally like page 1. This is the second little like vignette. I'm going to read you this line, this little introduction here. This is the first introduction of the grandfather. And this is sets the whole fucking tone for the grandfather throughout everything.
All right, hold on. Okay, I'm ready. I have to be in a very specific mood for horror, so anyway, here we go.
When the boy's grandfather rolls down the gravel drive in the station wagon, its wooden side panels rattling, he brings something with him. It's in his mother's odd, closed-mouth smile and his father's confused glances. It's in the shaking under his fingers when Teach growls at the man who climbs out of the car.
Hate it. Hate it. Hate it. Hate it. Hate it. Hate it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like Midsummer, Hereditary, like that kind of like creepy vibe, you know?
But what a good
Yes.
narrative effect where you find out not from the boy's point of view, but from his observation of the people around him.
Yeah.
And like, how accurate is that for a child who doesn't know
Yeah.
how to
Right,
react and has to
right.
look to
Yeah.
the adults? Like, that's perfect.
Yeah. He does that kind of throughout of like commenting on these little things that kids notice, that like kids pay attention to. Like the way his mom's soap smells and that kind of stuff. It's so good. I didn't realize really how into it I was until I was sitting here like eating it up. I was nearly halfway through it the very first time I sat down to read it. And I mean, it is a short, it's only 122 pages, but I usually read stuff like this whenever I'm on my lunch break or whenever I am, waiting for something on the stove to boil or something like that, and I'm not doing anything else. So to get that far in that short amount of time says a lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you hooked me because, again, like B said, when I first saw this on Goodreads, I was like, pass. But hearing all of this and like hearing little snippets, like 1000% chance I'll be reading it. Even though I know that there will be an animal death. I'll just have to force my way through it.
This reminds me of that awakening question from the last episode, but like, I like a good coming of age story, like one that's really done well, and it's really hard to do it well.
Yeah.
But like one that really actually hits home the perspective of a young person going through it.
I didn't like, I don't think as much of the coming of age stuff really resonated with me until I sat with it a little bit more, and I thought about like how much of these bits of some of these things happening and that are, I guess, elements of the horror story are also things that just happen to adolescents, of like becoming distant from your parents and not understanding what's going on and becoming more angry and becoming more of an outsider in your family and that kind of thing. Like, these are things that are elements of this horror, but these are also coming of age things that work. Yeah, they worked so seamlessly together. And I would read a full length novel of this exact story. I really, really enjoyed it. I think I'm going to buy the actual physical book whenever it comes out in August.
What else has this author written?
So as far as I can tell, nothing.
Yeah, no.
That's crazy.
Short stories are their whole own art. Like it's tough to be able to say so much with less.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In their author bio, it says that they got their master's in clinical psychology and then decided to leave to write. And I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
Thank you, S.L. Coney, for writing this, because it was so good.
I love the disparity between the unbridled rage of Kristen's rant.
Yes.
Versus the Caitlin's very impassioned but subtle, come read this book.
Yeah, and I'm like, don't ever read this in your entire life.
Yeah. My love letter to Wild Spaces.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to go to another mood? Do we want some silliness?
Yes, let's play our game. One more time before we close out, I'll say. So it's Wild Spaces by S.L. Coney, and it comes out August 1st. I think Goodreads says August 16th, but I did just see an article from Tor, the publisher, that says August 1st. So
Cool.
August 1st. Yeah.
So Lady has a game.
Play a game.
I have a stupid game.
All right.
Hell yeah.
We love stupid games.
I'm the only one here who has read so many Ice Planet Barbarian books.
All right.
And
Truth.
yeah. And my game is basically you have to find the fake name amongst names of babies that I'm gonna give you. So in Ice Planet Barbarians, everyone has babies, and they have a lot of them. Like I think at this point, Liz and Rahosh, who are from the second book, have like 4 of them.
What?
So like, at this point, like yeah, they have at least 3. I think they might have 4. I'm not sure.
That's intense.
So I have here 3 series of names, and I'm gonna read them to you, and you have to tell me which one I made up.
All right.
Wait. I feel like, okay. Can you give us a hint? Like, what are the types of names? No, wait. Like, so Rahosh is one of the, and then Vectel is one of the dudes.
Yeah, all the humans have, like, normal names.
Regular-ish names, yeah.
Yeah, like Liz or, I can't remember the other girl's name of the book I read.
Georgie, Liz,
yeah, Georgie.
Kira, I think is her name. This is the third girl.
Yeah, Kira.
One of them is named Tiffany, one of them's named
Yeah, they have, like,
Stacy.
standard white girls' names, okay?
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's a Megan.
Yeah.
But these are all the babies.
But yeah, these are all the names of the babies.
Presumably more Ice Planet Barbarian names.
So a lot of the couples in these books have decided to merge. It's like their new culture thing is to merge the 2 names together to make the names for the babies.
Oh,
so you'll
boy.
see some of them sound buckwild, some of them don't sound as buckwild.
All right, bring it on.
Are you ready?
I don't know, but let's do it.
Ready? No. Participating? Sure.
My first series of names is themed after names that start with A. We have Anna. We have Ayla, written Aayla. We have Ahsoka, like the Star Wars character. And Anakin, like the Star Wars character.
Shut up. Shut the fuck up.
Wait, and only one of these is not?
Only one of these is not a kid's name in Ice Planet Barbarian. Anna, Ayla, Ahsoka, and Anakin.
I think it's Anakin.
I think it's the second one.
B, do you have a guess?
Watch there be some reference to some, like, Star Wars buff in one of these.
Actually, I changed my answer because they talk about Star Wars because they call it not Hoth. So I've changed my answer.
Yes.
Okay.
The planet is called Not Hoth.
I'll go with Anna, because that's, like, the most normal name.
But I feel like she Lady gave us that one because it sounds normal. I'm gonna go with Caitlin's answer. I'm gonna say it's the second one.
You were right before, Kristen. It's
God
Anakin.
Damn it!
At one point, Liz talks about naming her baby Anakin if it's a boy, but it turns out to be a girl, so she named the baby Ahsoka after the Star Wars character.
Damn it, you tricked me.
I did.
This is in no way licensed.
Oh, absolutely not.
Oh, no.
My second list of names doesn't really have a theme.
Okay.
The names are Elsa, to go with Anna in the first question, Marek, Marrek, Relvi, Relvi, and Lukti, Lukti.
Kudos to me for guessing the spelling correctly before you said it.
Elsa,
the only
Marek,
thing I'm gonna win
Relvi,
this
and
game.
Lukti.
I think it's the third one.
Yeah, I'm going with Relvi.
Tristan, do you have a guess?
I think it's Merrick.
Marek is the fake one. Good job.
Yes! Oh! I fucking kill this game!
Come on, guys. Of course Elsa's a real name. She's Anna's twin. Obviously.
How embarrassing.
Yeah, there's Anna from the first questions, and there's Elsa for the second question.
Well, that's why I didn't go for that. I said Relvi.
Yes, no. Relvi is the kid of Claire and Erevan, so the re is like from Claire, and LV, who the fuck knows? All right.
Hear the quiet laughing of someone suppressing a laugh.
It's me.
I know.
They're just amazing names. What can you say?
All right.
And so my last question.
This feels like a game of like when white girls write all the names of the baby names they're trying to pick.
Yes.
That's literally it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
Last one I have names that have the sound sh in them. So I have Tash, Ashem, Makash, and Rachel.
I think Asham.
That's the one I'm going with too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Ashem is fake.
Okay.
I made that
Fuck
up.
yeah.
I figured Rasham was one because I
Yay.
feel like I've seen that one before.
Yeah, me too.
Rachel is one of Liz's kids.
Okay. Man, I fucking killed it. I technically got
Yeah.
3 for 3,
Yeah.
and I don't...
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
So close.
Swindled.
Yeah, because see, the more I thought about it, I was like, man, it's probably... Star Wars is going to be in it because they call it not Hoth. But then, yeah, you tricked me.
Because there were 2 Star Wars characters.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Congrats, though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Points.
What is my reward? Do I win anything?
You get to finish the podcast.
That or the knowledge that you can read a lot more
That was my
IPB
job.
books.
Oh, yeah, that's B's job. I don't finish it.
It's
The
Bee's
surprise
job,
is
yeah.
that we're all going to visit you in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
A week. 1 week?
Well,
Whatever it is.
2 weeks.
yeah, 2 weeks from now, but this episode will have been out for a week by then.
Yeah.
But it's
Mhm.
fine. Whenever you're ready, B, take us out of here.
All right. You can find us at Red in the Dark Pod on Instagram and Tumblr. Our email is redinthedarkpod@gmail.com if you want to ask a question about any of the books we discussed on this episode. We also have a book club. You can find us at Warren Page Library on Instagram and Tumblr, which will have details on how to join our Discord. Finally, we are hosting some challenges on Storygraph through the book club, which you can find by searching Warren Page Library's Book of the Month and Warren Page Library's 23 for 2023 in the challenges section of the app. To recap, Kristen's book was The Thing We Do to Our Friends by Heather Darwin, and Caitlin's book was Wild Spaces by S.L. Coney. Here are the books we mentioned. The Twilight of Democracy by Anne Applebaum, Candide by Voltaire, Wintersong by S.J. Jones, If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, These Violent Delights by Micah Nemerever, The Secret History by Donna Tartt, Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone, The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, and Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. Our next episode will air on July 18th. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye.
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 Bye.